It's unclear how Trump's growing legal issues will impact his support among the Republican base. But after months of jabs, one of Trump's likely 2024 challengers, Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, took aim at him for the first time.
I don't know what goes into paying hush money to a porn star to secure silence over some type of alleged affair. I can't speak to that.
But DeSantis went on to say the Manhattan DA's office was, quote, pursuing a political agenda and weaponizing the office. Hans, that was a very cautious jab at Trump there from DeSantis.
Yeah, I think the important thing is he's making the jabs, right? Up to this point, no one's really taken, Chris Christie, Mike Pence a little bit, but this is the first time DeSantis has really thrown a punch, not to do this all in boxing metaphors, during March when it should only be basketball metaphors. But this, you saw him take his shot. And he walked it back a little bit, but, I'm not so sure the walking back or the sort of when he kind of says, well, he sanitizes a little bit. I don't know if that matters for Trump, right? That's that you kind of have an audience of one here. And the audience of one is Donald Trump, to see to what extent he responds. And then it gets interesting. And I think we're just at the beginning of this. But I think what we learned from DeSantis this week is that he's in this fight and he's prepared to take a swing.
And he's trying to have it both ways, essentially, there. Hit Trump, also defend him in the hush money payment case. But Heather, DeSantis also backtracked on recent comments that he made about Ukraine. He had said that Russia's invasion was a territorial dispute at first. Now he's calling it a real invasion and called a Russian President Putin a war criminal. What's behind that change?
I think if you look at the backlash that he received from establishment Republicans, and DeSantis will claim that he doesn't want the support of the establishment, and sure, that helps him in a primary, but in reality, if you're going to be the general candidate, you do need the support of the establishment, right? But the backlash he received on Capitol Hill, especially from Senate Republicans who are mostly united and aligned behind continuing to fund this war and support Ukraine, and also the donors. A lot of them, frankly, were just taken aback by this. I think a lot of folks realize, Republicans, if you talk to them on the Hill, they see him as their establishment candidate. Now, Chip Roy is the only member of Congress who has endorsed him so far, and he's conservative and was a longtime Trump backer. But if you talk to Republicans, especially on the Senate side privately, they see him as kind of a Trump light, someone who can maybe bring this base along, if anyone can that's not Trump, but will also appeal to more establishment Republicans and the donor base that they're looking at. And so a lot of them, I think, just thought this was a very unnecessary error.
Republicans think that DeSantis can bring the base along, in part because he is very much aligned with the former president on policy and message, Eugene. So are we seeing that base actually move away from Trump and towards DeSantis or anyone else that's in or potentially going to get into the 2024 field?
Short answer, no. We're not seeing that, right? That's the thing that has been, I think, frustrating for a lot of Republicans whose names aren't Donald Trump for years, is that his base is with him. They have been with him from the very, very beginning. And it's hard to shake that. We went through January 6th, all types of things that he has said and done over the years, and they haven't moved. And I will say, with, DeSantis punching a little bit, or you have Pence doing the same thing, it has to be sustained. And more importantly, it has to be on a debate stage. It can't just be in a dark room where reporters can't record or not in an interview. It can't just be sitting down with Piers Morgan. It needs to be in front of Donald Trump to see how he reacts to it as well, because voters have not seen that. It didn't happen in 2016, and when it did with Marco Rubio, for example, it didn't go over very well, right? And so that is something that when I talk to some of these strategists who want someone like Ron DeSantis to jump in and be that Trump light, that's what they want to see. But they also, one of the other reasons they like Ron DeSantis isn't just because he's tough with media reporters, it's because he's been able to use the levers of government in Florida to take on the cultural issues that they care about, right? And that is something I think that Republicans, especially conservatives, are looking to do on the federal level. And that's another reason why he's their man to beat, they think.
And they also like that he won. They like the margin.
Right.
That's the big, and you saw DeSantis sort of wink at that when he says, I'm a winner, and talk about putting points on the board. But that's like when the core of the DeSantis sort of, I don't want to say boomlet, but interest is that he won, and he won big in a state that used to be tight. And, donors look and notice that.
Right. Florida is very different, though, than a lot of the swing states across the country, where Trump didn't win. But Republicans back in Washington are also working out another disagreement over increasing the debt ceiling, which needs to be done to prevent a default, a fiscal cliff, which, as we all know, would cause catastrophic damage, send the economy potentially into a recession, and the U.S. would default not be able to pay its obligations. But Heather, Punchbowl was just reporting about this as House Republicans are demanding that President Biden negotiate over spending cuts in order for an exchange on increasing the debt ceiling. They're also struggling amongst themselves to even figure out what spending cuts they are trying to do. Where is this all headed?
Yeah, so right now, Democrats, including Biden, are saying, show us your plan. Put your budget out, right? We put ours out. You may not like it, but show us what you have. Because remember, House Republicans want to roll this back to fiscal 2022 levels, but they don't want to touch defense. They don't want to touch most entitlements. So where are these cuts going to come from? Well, the problem is they only have a 5-seat majority in the House, and most of them do not agree on what these cuts are. So they have not put a budget out yet. They keep saying that they'll probably put something out in April, maybe as late as May. But in the meantime, they want Biden to continue to negotiate with them. You look at Democrats, and Democrats say, we have nothing to negotiate with. What are we supposed to do? So it's a very interesting position that they've put themselves in. And we actually reported this morning that Senate Republicans are getting a little bit nervous about this and saying, all right, we're kind of getting close. We need to get you guys to the table and figure it out.
Hans, do you think that there is any appetite among Republicans? I know Heather's essentially saying they still want those spending cuts, but any appetite for a clean debt ceiling increase?
Oh, no. I mean, there might be privately, but none that anyone can take and expect to still be Speaker of the House, right? So, I mean, that's McCarthy's challenge, and he's letting the House work its will. And I think, Heather, you guys have done a great job. You guys too, Politico too. But you guys sort of on how he has kept his coalition together and how he's gotten the votes, and that's by listening. And so, if we are all going to be taking a bet right now on whether or not it's going to be April or May for the budget, take the over, right? It's going to be May. There has to be a lot more conversations on just what's doable. And I think, we might all be nervous about it. Wall Street might be nervous about it. There's, some Senate Republicans that are nervous about it. The nervousness doesn't seem to have really seeped into the core of the House Republican Conference. And until that does, and no one knows what the event is going to be that makes them nervous. Is it going to be a massive market correction? Is it going to be a big sell-off? No one really knows yet. Until that happens, I think we're all kinds of sort of, in the prelims on this and not really in the fight yet.
And Eugene, the recent bank failures prompted some Republicans to argue that we should make spending cuts. This is a good reason to make spending cuts. What has the White House response been to that?
Yeah, I talked to a White House aide today about this exact same issue, and they said especially what the SVP issue showed, is that one, it has nothing to do with spending cuts. It was about regulation, right? That these things don't have much to do with each other. And there's also some Republicans who are saying this proves that we shouldn't be moving the debt limit, that we shouldn't do that, and that's another thing, obviously, the White House surprise does not agree with, right? They don't want these things coupled. I don't see them changing their mind on that. And they over and over, aides will tell you in the White House that Republicans have done this before, and they eventually blink, right? They eventually kind of shake, the donors start panicking, the business community starts to panic, and then Republicans kind of get in line. The House Republicans, this set of House Republicans don't seem to have that same kind of fear of those groups of folks. And so it's the Senate that I think we should be watching, right? Whereas Senate Republicans who are going to have to kind of take this over at some point is how a lot of folks in the White House feel, because they don't see Kevin McCarthy, though he's listening a lot, they're worried that he's not going to be able to lead his people into doing something that could keep this country from, economic catastrophe. And we have, some income that's going to be coming into the government based on taxes here in April. That will kind of tell us exactly when that X date is. Right now it's maybe August, it might be September, we might be able to push it off, but it's very unclear, and that is not good for anything.
It's not good at all. And let's hope that we don't reach economic catastrophe at all, but we have to leave it there for now. And so thank you to my panel for joining us and for sharing your reporting.